I'm talking to Tony Shore.
Anthony Allen Shore,
Okay.
for the record.
All right, great.
It always amazed me how people just, yeah, you want to ride? Sure.
Yet another discovery of the body of a young girl in Houston.
Murders are not uncommon.
The body is that of a young girl.
And in my experience as a prosecutor, murders kind of fall into a couple categories. There's crimes of passion. There are crimes that are drug or alcohol induced. And then you have someone like Anthony Shore, who, it's not just one murder, it is a way of life.
Gina Rebiar's naked and badly beaten body was discovered near a vacant office building on the North Loop.
Back then, they were afraid of declaring we've got a serial killer without absolute proof of it.
The body of 16-year-old Dana Sanchez
It's spread out years apart.
found in a remote area off the North Freeway.
No witnesses saw anything.
Investigation of the Sanchez murder has brought out interest in 2 other cases.
Different parts of town.
Each was abducted during the daylight hours. Each is missing at least one item of clothing. In some cases, the latter 2, they're missing all their clothing.
He could ride the high he got off of killing somebody for a year or more. In some cases in the beginning, the euphoria that he gets from committing his murders lasted longer, and as time goes on and he kills more and more, it's shorter and shorter periods of time.
He didn't look like a violent person, but he was.
You'd never know that there was that demon hidden behind the facade.
And was there a demon in there?
Yeah.
Over the course of a decade, Anthony Allen Shore preyed on girls and young women, his victims, both strangers and family. The killings so spread out in time that in the sprawling city of Houston, Texas, the public was largely unaware of a lurking serial killer with a signature calling card, homemade tourniquets that he used to strangle victims. Shore went undetected for 2 decades. It would ultimately be his own flesh and blood who exposed him.
He wasn't evil looking or evil acting, but inside he was the example of evil. I was assigned to the scene. I was working night shift, 11 at night till 7 in the morning. When we arrived, the patrol units were already on the scene and had taped off the area where the body was located, and there was initially an ambulance on the scene, but it was not needed because the victim was dead. So me and my partner began to process the scene of the body of Gina Rebiar.
The 9-year-old girl had gone to the store alone a few hours earlier and never returned.
Gina Rebiar was 9 years old, a student at Burris Elementary, just a few days shy of the beginning of her 4th grade year. She and her family lived in a duplex in the Heights area of Houston, named for its higher elevation in a city just 50 feet above sea level. On the afternoon of August 7th, 1994, Gina headed out with $5 in her pocket and the mission to buy sugar at the corner store. It was only 2 blocks away. She never returned home.
Plainclothes detectives worked searching for clues. Still, the
police canvassed the neighborhood. Family and friends posted flyers. Her parents feared the worst. 12 hours later, a security guard on patrol at a vacant office building 5 miles from the little girl's home found her body.
Gina was laying in the back of the parking lot near a loading dock. She was naked from the waist down. Appeared that nothing else indicated that the crime had occurred there, and we believe she had probably just dumped there. Other than that, there were no witnesses. Absolutely nothing to go on. Just a young Hispanic female, 9 years old, dumped in a parking lot.
And around her neck was a ligature.
It was made out of parachute cord which is common, and inside the parachute cord was inserted about a 4 to 6 inch stick so that you could turn the stick and tighten the ligature.
Until it gets so tight that it cuts off blood flow and circulation.
And it's just like an easier way than just taking the rope by itself or the cord by itself?
It's a more controlling way.
The homemade tourniquet reminiscent of another murder from 2 years earlier, upping the ante for the Houston Police Department.
There was definitely a sense of urgency. I think everybody there feared the possibility of there being additional killings. And unfortunately there were.
About 30 years ago, 34 years ago almost, yeah, when I first started. Back then I was off on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so I was out here Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays.
Patrick Bolger is a bus driver for Metro, Houston's public transit. He drives a different route now, but in 1992...
She was a regular in the morning.
Every morning he stopped here before 6 a.m. and Maria del Carmen Estrada, a petite single mother who worked 2 jobs, was waiting.
I remember her being quiet. She didn't speak any English. So every morning when she'd get on the bus, I would tell her good morning, and she would just pay her fare and go sit down. And finally I got her to break, and she finally started, telling me good morning.
On April 16, 1992, Bolger made the stop, but there was no Carmen.
When she wasn't there, I said, that's weird, she's always here. And so that morning I just waited. My passengers were asleep, basically, because they all got off at Gessner, and so I said, I'll give her a few minutes. I gave her about 5 minutes. And I kept on looking and kept on looking to see if she was coming, and she just never showed up. And I said, well, I got to go.
The body of the 21-year-old who had immigrated to Houston just a year earlier was found later that morning, dumped behind a Dairy Queen just down the street from the bus stop. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death.
I was shocked. I was shocked, who would do something like that to her? She never bothered nobody.
Police recovered DNA from Carmen's body, worked possible leads, but the case went cold. 2 years later, the murder of Diana Rebiar gave police a connection, one that wasn't shared with the public.
And it wasn't until the Rebiar case in 1994, a couple of years later, happened where they connected the MO based on the ligature, and that's when they expanded the number of people working on the case. It went from just 1 pair to several pair.
Retired Houston Police Homicide Detective DD Shirley remembers working long hours on Diana's case.
We did find a witness that had seen a white van near where she was abducted, but there was no plates listed, no description of any drivers or passengers. So we had no place to go on that. We spent probably anywhere between 3 to 4 months looking for leads and trying to find somewhere to go, but there was no place to go.
There was a child killer they were desperate to find, but workable leads dried up.
Eventually, as bad as I hate to say it, you got to lay it down and wait for something to happen because you got other cases coming in.
So it kind of went cold?
Went cold.
In 1994, homicide numbers in Houston, once considered the murder capital of the U.S., were on the way down. But by the following year, there would be questions about whether a serial killer was on the prowl.
Although there are some similarities, we feel that there are enough differences in the cases that make them unique in themselves.
A call to a local television station.
The male did not identify himself.
Revealed another body.
Said that he had killed this white female.
And ignited fear.
You could locate her body in this general area.
I'm worried about all these young girls. Just keep them inside, no more outside by themselves.
At 3:05, sheriff's deputies found the badly decomposed body of a young white or Hispanic woman nude, face down, about 15 feet off a dead-end road.
There was a call to the TV station, and the person that took the call was smart enough to figure out, hey, I'm talking to somebody that might be the killer here. He knows way too much.
It was July 14th, 1995. Investigators headed out to the area the caller reported, a brushy field outside Houston city limits in Harris County. Days earlier, 16-year-old Dana Sanchez, a student at Waltrip High School, had plans to meet up with her boyfriend and promised to call her best friend when she arrived.
He told me she wasn't there. And I was like, I got scared. I was like, maybe she'll come back tomorrow. And we waited till the next day. And then when I didn't hear nothing from her, just thought the worst.
Dana's family searched and waited for 8 days. At the direction of the mystery caller, the teen's badly decomposed body was found in the field, a yellow rope around her neck.
Why does a person like him, why do they call the TV station? Why does that happen?
The body wasn't found. He wanted the recognition, he wanted to control, he wanted to control the narrative. He liked seeing it on the news.
Yet another discovery of the body of a
girl in Houston. He liked the attention on himself, and he liked the control, and I think that was when the body wasn't immediately found and when he wasn't getting any of the attention, he decided to stick his finger in it and stir it up a little bit, and that's exactly what he did. And he got what he wanted. And right away it was back again on front page news.
Do you believe you have a serial killer on your hands?
We don't have evidence to prove that. We don't have evidence in the least to prove that. We won't know that until we get somebody in custody.
The reality that her killer had struck before was coming into focus.
There must have been a homicide of this young girl here.
Do you all think this is a serial killer?
Well, I think it is. I think it is. Has to be.
Why?
Because the way he killed those two girls.
He was a predator. He would go out hunting.
So you called him Tony. Did you call him Tony? He went by Tony?
Tony, pretty normal kid. He was extremely gifted when it came to music. I don't think there was an instrument ever made that he couldn't play. He could see it for the first time in his life and within 10, 15 minutes play it like he played it his whole life. Just extremely musically inclined. He liked to draw, he liked to paint. Very gifted in the arts. Very likable, very charismatic. Knew how to say the right thing, how to act the right way. He presented very, very well. You'd never know that there was that demon hidden behind the facade.
Anthony Tony Shore was born in South Dakota. The first child of Deanna and Robert Shore, he had 2 younger sisters. The family moved a lot for their father's job. Kansas, Oklahoma, New York, California, Texas, Alabama, and Georgia had all been home.
I would say growing up that we were pretty close because there really wasn't an opportunity to get to really know other kids, not living anywhere very long. The word that comes to mind is sorrow.
Gina Shore was younger than Tony by 2 years.
It's so sad that he had to be that way.
He didn't like sports, she said. He was creative and charming, but she said he also exhibited antisocial behavior. Gina remembers a violent incident with a cat. He also enlisted her help to gain access to girls.
I just thought my brother had crushes on girls, and he'd convince me to go up and knock on their door. And, hey, can you go up and knock on their door and see if their daughter will come out? Because I'm afraid to go up there. And every single one of those girls went on out. Oh, okay, because it looked better to their mom that a girl was asking them to come outside. And of course, he was a cute boy.
And what would he do?
Molest them. He'd grab them. I guess it's typical boy stuff to some extent, but it's still not okay. In today's society, it's really not okay. He'd try to grab them and kiss them and grope them and whatever else.
The parents divorced and Tony went to live with their father in Texas. He took some classes at a junior college and then got a job working for a phone company. By 21, he was married. He was a father of 2 daughters within 2 years. There was Amber, who was the oldest, and Tiffany.
I guess I wasn't as close to them until I guess after, Tiffany I was somewhat close to. I met her when she was 5 years old the first time and kind of instant bond with her, but really didn't get to know her too much until probably 1995, 97 when they came out to live on the West Coast.
It was then that Tiffany revealed the unthinkable, the beginning of Tony Shore's end.
I had had a really bad day at work, and I asked her, I said, I was just going, hey, you ever feel like somebody's done something just you felt was not justified? She went sheet white and started telling me everything my brother had been doing to her.
And what did she tell you he was doing to her?
Mostly molestation.
The abuse had gone on for years, Tiffany said. Tony and the girl's mother had divorced. He was granted custody.
There was quite a period of time when he was the children's only caretaker. So he was able to get away with everything just shy of murder.
Though initially charged with aggravated sexual assault of a child, in 1998, Shore pleaded no contest to indecency with a child for molesting Tiffany and another juvenile. It was a good deal for him. Avoiding prison time, he was sentenced to 8 years probation and was required to submit his DNA to police, attend a sex offender treatment program, and register as a sex offender, which by law would prohibit him from living near children.
But there was an exception to that 100-yard rule. Because Shore had lived in his home prior to the plea, Judge Hughes allowed him to remain there, even though he lives right across the street from the Field Elementary School playground.
But a year later, Shore was the subject of a news report exposing a judge's decision that exempted him from that restriction. The registered sex offender was allowed to remain in his home despite it being across the street from an elementary school. Parents were livid.
They ought to put a sign in front of his house. Child molester lives here.
And when confronted, Shore denied allegations that he walked around the school.
Some people have said, though, that they've seen you walking your dogs around the vicinity of the school.
That's not true.
No?
No, I walk my dog that direction and I'm always supervised.
We need to know who is in our neighborhood.
4 years later, neighbors would find out how dangerous Tony Shore was.
He was not remorseful. He is an evil man, okay? I wish I could share with you guys what he told us, but it's unspeakable. All right, Tony, I'm going to turn the tape on now. This is Sergeant John Swain of Houston Police Homicide. It is, I guess, now October the 25th of 2003. It's about 8 minutes after midnight. I'm here in the Homicide Division, 1200 Travis, an interview. I'm talking to Tony Shore.
Anthony Allen Shore, okay, for the record.
All right, great. What I want to do, first of all, can I call you Tony? Is that right?
That's fine.
Well, we had reason to believe the cases were connected. We did not have any reason to believe that Anthony Shore was connected to the cases. We had no reason to believe that he was even associated with any of these cases at that time.
After 2 independent audits found problems with the lab's record keeping and handling of samples.
In 2002, the Houston Police Department's crime lab was embroiled in controversy. A state audit revealed poorly trained employees, evidence that was improperly stored, and other problems in the DNA section that ultimately shut it down. It was an embarrassment to the city, but perhaps the best thing that happened in the murder cases of 21-year-old Carmen Estrada in 1992, 9-year-old Dinah Rebiar in 1994, and 16-year-old Dana Sanchez the following year. With the DNA section of the crime lab shuttered, police decided to have the DNA that was lifted from Estrada's body analyzed one more time. It was sent to a private lab and was compared to profiles in a nationwide database, and in 2003,
We were able to subject it to new technology, and I think that was the difference in this case.
more than 10 years after the first known murder, there was a match.
It was sitting there all that time, and it was fortunate for us, I guess, that it was at least properly maintained, and they were able to get a full profile of it. It would have been nice to have back in 1992 or 1994 or any of the following years afterwards, but we got it eventually.
Shore was arrested for capital murder, accused of killing Estrada. He was taken to police headquarters in downtown Houston, where he was placed in an interview room and would eventually reveal the extent of his depravity. Retired homicide detective Todd Miller remembers Shore as controlling and manipulative.
So everybody else was done talking to him, so I thought I would give it a try and see what happened. So I talked to him and initially got absolutely nowhere. I think we bought him dinner at some point, fed him, and he was willing to talk. He never clammed up. He actually had questions. I would ask questions, he would ask questions. And he was engaged in the interview the whole time. He never actually stopped being engaged. But the interview was stagnant for the first half. It wasn't until the second half of the interview that things started opening up. And then ultimately he got to the point where he asked, "What if I asked you a hypothetical question?" And I said, "Well, I'd give you an answer." I said, "Depending on the circumstances, I'd give you the answer that you're looking for." I said, "What's your hypothetical question?" And then we danced around the whole hypothetical question for several hours before he finally came up with the hypothetical question. Hypothetically speaking, if I was to tell you about all those cases you wanted to know about and tell you about 2 other ones, how would that make you feel, Officer Miller? And I said, "Well, that'd make me feel pretty good."
Number one, you have the right to remain silent, not make any statement at all. And that
in truly controlling fashion, Shore requested to speak to another detective.
Number two, any statement you make may be used as evidence against
for
you
the
in
big
court.
confession.
You understand these warnings?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to waive these rights and talk to me about some cases?
Yes, sir.
Detective John Swaim switched with Todd Miller, and Shore revealed another murder.
He started off by giving us a murder that we did not even have connected to the others as a beginning, because no tourniquet had been involved. It was a murder that he had done in 1986.
Laura Tremblay was 15 years old and targeted as she was walking to a metro bus stop for her daily ride to school. In September of 1986, her body was found dumped behind a Mexican restaurant that today is no longer there. She had been strangled with a cord.
Lori's fully clothed body was found dumped behind this West Houston restaurant. Police say she had been strangled.
A week later, her grieving mother blamed the school district for not providing transportation to get Lori to school.
I'm angry at what I had to go through and what was never provided. And I'm angry that somebody picked my daughter out and killed her.
17 years later, Shore confessed, telling police he would give her rides until one day when he couldn't contain himself.
I undid her bra. Everything got out of hand. She freaked out, and we got into a fight. I tried to knock her out because I just really freaked out. Mm-hmm. It's not right. I'm not justifying it. It's hard to talk about. I took this cotton cord and I strangled her. And the cotton cord broke more than once. It wasn't working. That's all I had.
Did you just use your hands, or did you use some kind of...
It was a cord, a ligature.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, did you use them?
Yeah, my hands. I cut my fingers up since then.
And you did that in the car, is that correct?
In the car.
And then what happened there? I mean,
I panicked. Daylight came on, and I didn't know what to do. So I drove up behind the Memphis there, and I pushed her out of the car. I just wanted to get away from the situation.
In an eerily similar statement, Shore confessed to killing Carmen Estrada, the young single mother who worked 2 jobs.
It got out of hand, and she freaked out, and I knew this was not. This was going to be real bad, and my life was forever. So I panicked, and once again, it was starting to become daylight. So to avoid discovery, again, I strangled her because I knew that.
What did you strangle her with?
I'm going to say a nylon ligature, a piece of cord. I don't remember.
In 1994, his relationship with a live-in girlfriend was on the rocks, he told police. So he went out hunting for another victim. 9-year-old Diana Rebiar crossed his path.
When I was unhappy and things weren't going well, And Dana Rebiar, that was a freaky, that's the sickest. I don't understand exactly. It's too young, not developed. That was an opportunity, freaky thing that I don't know why I did that. But I remember seeing this girl walking along.
What street you on?
I want to say on Main Street. And I was going to molest her, and she fought like hell. Strangely, she fought like hell. I mean, just wouldn't go along with anything. Fought and fought. And I don't recall what type of cord or string or piece of wire or something. And I did the same thing. I knew I was f***ing. I don't know why. It kept happening. I couldn't stop it. I could say other voices in my head, but it seemed like it was my own sickness. And I tried to have sex with her, but it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. She just fought so bad, and she's so small, and I just thought, God, you sick f***. What the hell is wrong with you? Why have you lost your mind? And at this point, I just wanted it to end.
It's a 9-year-old girl, for crying out loud. This is not even a developed woman. This is a 9-year-old child, and he acts like they were in some sort of relationship. Give me a break. That's a bunch of BS, and that's, in his mind, it's a fantasy that he's playing in his mind.
His fourth murder confession was for 16-year-old Dana Sanchez, who had set out to meet up with her boyfriend.
I was driving around, and I saw this girl. I want to say she was wearing white coveralls and a striped shirt underneath. And she was mad. She had this look that she was angry and upset, and she was at a payphone. I just said, hey, would you like a ride? She says, man, I'm going to see my boyfriend somewhere. I forget where she told me. I said, no problem. She jumped right in. And we went driving. And we had conversation, and I had this same sick fantasy crap going through my mind, like there could be something, relationship there, or some type of thing between us.
Shore told police he strangled her when she rejected his sexual advances.
Once again, I knew that I couldn't stop. I knew there was nothing I could do to get out of this. And I used a ligature.
Remember what it was?
I want to say it was a yellow twisted nylon rope.
And there was still one more case that police had not connected to him. The only case with a survivor.
I think she kicked him so hard that he left. And I think that's why he didn't kill her.
She saved her own life.
I think she saved her own life. Absolutely.
She was young, she was attractive, and I was a phone man working outdoors, outside plant. And I'd worked down this street several times. I'd seen her coming home. I knew that she was a latchkey kid.
In September 1993, Tony Shore used his job to scout for his latest victim. The 14-year-old was a student at Lamar High School. When she got home one day, Shore was already inside waiting for her. It was a vicious attack.
I wore a t-shirt, had a hood and sunglasses so she couldn't be recognized. Told her it was a burglary, got her cooperation, and tied her up with electrical cord. And raped her. And then the resistance and the violence got out of hand. I told her that I knew how the police worked and this and that, and I told her to say that it was a short, fat black man, and that if I heard different, then I'd come back and take her family out, and I made a lot of threats and evilness. And when at the mention of the family thing, she started fighting and kicking. Only her hands were restrained as she started just going berserk.
She fought back and survived. A police photo shows her head still wrapped in the duct tape Shore bound, and if that wasn't enough, he terrorized her afterward.
There were phone calls that she received afterwards. It was him. She was positive it was him. So to know that, first of all, you've been sexually assaulted brutally, and to know that that person is still out there and is still watching you had to have been one of the most horrific things for a sexual assault victim to go through.
10 years later, prosecutor Therese Boos was the one to notify her about the DNA match and confession.
What was her reaction? Do you remember?
She burst into tears. Yeah.
Police are calling him a sexual predator.
Next, it was the public's turn to be informed.
The man is evil. He needs to be off the street.
News of a serial killer's arrest and confession stunned Houston. And in Shore's old neighborhood in the Heights, residents couldn't believe it.
I mean, that really scares me. And as I said, I have 2 daughters, and at that time they were around the same age as his daughters.
The 41-year-old who had trouble keeping a job was now living in another part of Houston with a new girlfriend and her sons, one of whom said this about Shore following his arrest.
He made me real happy too. He helped me out with a lot of things, and I'm pretty grateful to have known him all in all. He just had another side. He had issues,
No one expected multiple murders.
I was pretty shocked about it. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I mean, I thought he would have cleaned up his act.
Not even his oldest daughter, Amber, who helped expose him as a sexual predator.
He was like abusive at times to his people he's in relationships with, but I never thought he would like go that far as like sneak off around alleyways and snatch up little girls.
But on the West Coast, there was one person who wasn't surprised.
My sister calls me and she says, "You got to sit down." She says, "There's Tony's DNA." And I said, "What? They finally found that he killed somebody?" And I had said it jokingly, and my sister says, "How'd you know?" And I said, "I knew. I just knew."
To defend him as zealously as we can to protect his constitutional rights and to see that he get a fair trial.
Shore was charged with capital murder in the deaths of Lori, Carmen, Diana, and Dana. It didn't take long for the Harris County District Attorney's Office to decide to seek the death penalty.
I think you guys know how the citizens of Harris County are, and he is a serial killer who's killed 4 little girls, so, I mean, you can pretty much guess what most people would think he deserves.
During the searches that followed Shore's arrest, police seized some telling evidence.
We searched his bedroom, and we found about 5 photo albums that he had kept, and they were filled with newspaper catalog cutouts of young Hispanic women wearing lingerie, page after page after page of it.
They were collages. Literally, he had gone in and he cut out from magazines color pictures of women's breasts. And there would be like a whole poster board, a large poster board of just breasts, all breasts.
And I've also been through a lot of sex offender treatment therapy since this time. And
In his confession, Shore referenced his time in sex offender treatment, a requirement of the plea deal in the molestation cases.
I'm starting to understand some of the psychopathology behind my preoccupation.
To police, he said he had learned something. His treatment work binder told a different story. Remember those cutouts? He hid some of them inside the folder.
He was just gaming, totally gaming the program.
Shore was denied bond on the capital murder charges and spent the next months at the Harris County Jail. His mother and sister Gina visiting him at least once.
And I asked him, I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, they've got it all wrong." He says, "One of them was my girlfriend at the time, the 16-year-old girl. She was a groupie. And it was just a sex crime gone wrong," he said. And it's like, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. Plausible reasons for anything and everything. It was just a bad misunderstanding. I'm sorry, 9-year-old child, that's not a misunderstanding.
He paints every one of his encounters with every one of his victims in a very positive light to begin with, right up until the point where he kills them. I mean, he's just a gentleman, and he's suave and debonair, and the ladies like him right up until the point he kills them. That's him controlling what's going to be said about him as a person leading up to the murders. And I don't for a minute believe that any one of his victims fell for his crap.
While awaiting trial, Shore penned a letter to his living girlfriend promising love and ecstasy, adoration and devotion. He also wrote of his plans to escape. The message was frenzied and impulsive. She gave the letter to police.
When we were searching his house, after we completed the search, we spoke to her. And of course, she says, no way, he didn't do it. He didn't do it.
My name is Gerald Burke. I represented Mr. Shore in his capital murder case.
By October of 2004, a year after the DNA match, Shore stood trial.
He was nice enough. He was straightforward enough. I don't think he ever lied to me. It was interesting. I don't think he ever lied to me.
Gerald Burke was co-counsel. Therese Boos was one of two prosecutors. The case was massive.
It had to be divided section by section, capital murder by aggravated sexual assault of a child, and then another murder. It was the only way to handle it. I mean, otherwise it would be totally overwhelming. And we made the decision to try Estrada first. It was the easiest one to begin with because it's the one that got us to Anthony Shore. And you had the DNA match. So telling the story to the jury of how we got to Anthony Shore was easiest with her case.
But they had to try it as a singular case, which meant the jury had no idea Shore was an accused serial killer. On the defense side, guilt or innocence seemed to be a foregone conclusion for Shore. He had already told his lawyers that he wanted to be sentenced to die.
And what we were just trying to do is to get a lesser included offense. He had already made it clear, to us at least, that punishment was a foregone conclusion for him. Don't get ready for it, don't do anything for it. I'm not going to help you find anything. We're just, if they find me guilty of capital murder, that's just the way it goes. So there really wasn't a lot of work. To get to punishment, the punishment phase of that case would have required the state to find him guilty of a lesser included offense. So our position was he didn't kidnap the girl got in the car willingly, but when you lock the door not to let him out, it kind of goes south on you.
Carmen Estrada never made it to her bus stop in 1992.
I didn't set out to kill her. That was not my intent.
Her body was found behind a Dairy Queen. Shore told police he had modified his approach since his first victim, using a handmade tourniquet as the murder weapon.
Did you use your hands on this one, or you use something else?
I want to say because I had my hands up from the first one, I used a piece of wood, a pencil, or might not have been a pencil, it was something. Might have been a paintbrush, something. Some piece of wood or something that twisted it.
Right, but on this one, you think it was a white cord you said? You think it was like a pencil or a paintbrush or something you used?
A piece of wood, some kind of piece of wood.
You used as a, I don't know, what's the word, a tourniquet maybe? Or
yeah, something.
You like put it in there and then you twist it.
Yeah.
With Estrada, Shore told police he had established a relationship, but that when he took it to the next level, she rejected him. And he told a similar story about the other murder victims.
I think in his mind, he knew that socially there had to be some kind of reason, that we would all be looking for why. And I think that he just offered that as his excuse, just like he did the reason why he had to kill all of them. It was because they fought him and rejected him, and he felt he had to kill them to save his marriage or girlfriend or relationship at the time. Yeah, it's just garbage.
Shore was convicted of capital murder for killing Estrada. Next was the punishment phase, and for the first time, the jury would learn the man who had been sitting just feet away from them was a serial killer.
They were surprised, and I think they were very overwhelmed with what came at them.
I hope he gets locked away and they throw away the keys. I hope he gets the death penalty or something. He's an evil, evil person.
Nearly 10 years before Anthony Shore stood trial for capital murder, his other daughter, Tiffany, made an outcry.
He would lock the doors and basically lock them into what was essentially a prison cell. And the things that he did were absolutely horrific. It just boggles my mind.
As part of a plea deal to reduce the charges from aggravated sexual assault to indecency with the child, Shore was required to provide his DNA, which eventually led to his arrest for the murders of 4 women and girls: Lori Tremblay, Carmen Estrada, Diana Rebiar, and Dana Sanchez.
It's all about the DNA.
Because had that not happened,
He could still be out there today.
Both his daughters, then adults, testified during the punishment phase, facing in court the man who was supposed to protect them.
how brave were they to do that?
I was so proud of them. I was so proud of them that they spoke up in court.
Well, his 2 daughters, Tiffany and Amber, they played such a significant role in this, and it's hard for me to even mention their names for how I feel about how courageous they were and what they really accomplished in this case.
Prosecutor Therese Boos recalls one daughter's testimony as the only one that affected Shore's emotionless exterior. The jury was greatly moved by the teen who survived the brutal attack inside her home.
It was hard to present that. I mean, that jury was crying. They were crying. I'm sorry. And that's hard because you have a surviving victim, so you kind of go through all of that with them. So yeah, these are, and I'm a professional. Those jurors were a variety of people who had to listen to all of it, all at once, over the course of a few days. Each of these crimes was horrendous. Every single one of them in their own way, it was a life that had been terminated for no good reason other than his sick fantasy.
Other testimony revealed that Shore would often drug and choke his romantic partners during sex as they were in varying states of consciousness.
A jury hands up a death sentence to a...
Within an hour, the jury had a verdict, and Anthony Shore got what he wanted, the death penalty.
Well, I liked him to the extent that I knew him, but I only knew him from a custodial situation. He didn't belong out here with the rest of us. That much is clear.
And the state's job was done. Prosecutors elected not to try him for the other 3 murders since he was already facing the death penalty.
Under the Code of Criminal Procedure, our only job is to see that justice is done. That's it. Period. Not to get a conviction, not anything, just to see that justice is done, whatever that is. And in this case, it was getting a death penalty answer from a jury for all of his acts. Absolutely.
That was the appropriate punishment?
Absolutely. What else can you do with someone like Tony Shore?
Shore spent the next 14 years on death row. He exhausted his appeals and managed to escape one date with death. Just before his planned execution in October of 2017, he confessed to another man's murder. Larry Swearingen was also on death row for the 1998 capital murder of 19-year-old Melissa Trotter. With the execution a go, a judge granted a last-minute stay.
And quote his words, that if this was my day, God's will be done, and he's glad that he gets another 90 days.
Eventually, Shore signed a statement saying he had nothing to do with Trotter's murder, but not before investigators made several trips to death row to talk to him about the possibility of more victims.
It was just him trying to manipulate law enforcement further and I guess stay off of the gurney as long as he could.
Do you think he killed more than 4 people?
Absolutely. No doubt in my mind.
90 days later, Shore found himself in the death chamber.
Remember these faces. This is who today is about.
the first Texas execution
Anthony Allen Shore's reign of terror
in 2018.
is officially over.
He said that he could feel it, that it was hot, it was burning. And he goes, ooh, wee, is how he put it.
Shore offered an apology to the families he tore apart and said he made his peace. He wanted his sister Gina to be there as a witness.
Do you ever think about your brother?
She declined.
Sometimes, every once in a while, I'll hear some really pretty piece of music in a style of music that he played, and I'll think, what a shame. What a shame, such talent. He could have done so much more that was positive. I just feel sad. I feel sad for his victims, his daughters. His daughters are victims too.
Gina remains close with Tiffany. The young mom lives in Arizona and has a daughter.
I thought he was a little bit psychotic. And
Amber, who spoke out after their father's arrest, has not been heard from in years.
We don't know what Amber's doing. Amber may not be alive. We don't really know. Nobody's talked to her in over 20 years.
Gina neither embraces the notoriety nor shies away from it.
I know it sounds so hokey to say that if I don't say something, it just perpetuates it further. And maybe somebody else who might be wondering if their relative's doing something wrong, maybe they'd come forward if they see that somebody actually has gone through it.
Today, the victims would have been middle-aged women, mothers, sisters, daughters, whose families never got to see them grow up.
I think the victims were absolutely terrorized, absolutely traumatized and terrorized, and I can't even imagine what they went through during the time that led up to their death. It had to be horrific. There's just no way of knowing except to know that they're in a better place now.
She'd be standing over here, and she would come from that direction. I was thinking that she lived over here at the next block.
Patrick Bolger has wondered from time to time about the life of his passenger Carmen Estrada, but is certain about the fate of the man who killed her.
He got what he deserved. Just a little bit too late, but he got what he deserved.